Greetings, unsettled souls, and welcome to The Correct Views. Sam, I'm eating Angie, doing political commentary here for the Media Speaks. Low def right there. High def there. If you're listening live, welcome aboard. If you're not listening live, go to youtube.com/correctviews. High def just looks better. Hopefully, we did a reset in the studio because the higher def the camera wants to keep truncating the videos down to 11 minutes. So we're seeing if we can give you really good quality in at least less than 5 videos. So we'll see how it goes. All right, friends, this is from theguardian.com. Classify this under do not question the correct views. We are not called the correct opinions. This was obvious to me. Now, if you're looking at me and you think that guy's not a physicist, that guy probably is not a doctor. You, my friend, are right. I'm not a physicist nor a doctor. And yet, I'm the only person out here that predicted last Monday, look it up, it's the 14th today, look it up, go back 7 days. Lady Gaga fans, use a calculator. I predicted that the robot was going to suffer death. And I even laughed at myself because I said death as if it was a human. The robot was going to get juiced by the radiation, is what I predicted last Monday. Well, it might have been Tuesday morning. Guess what? I was right. Fukushima robot stranded after stalling inside reactor. For those of you that don't know, radiation kills everything, real life and robotic life included. I don't think some of you realize that radiation is the cooking of the human body. It is the cooking of transistors inside of a robot. I know because it's so small, you don't see the fires, so your mind doesn't register that something is grossly wrong here. But again, this is not fun and games. Okay, friends, I'm not out here for my health. This is bad. This is very, very, very bad. It's so bad that we don't have the technology to deal with the problem that's caused here. Listen to this. Decommissioning work at the Fukushima Daiichi nuclear power plant has suffered a setback after a robot sent into a damaged reactor to locate melted fuel known as corium stalled hours into its mission and had to be abandoned. The plant's operator, Tokyo Electric Power, that is TEPCO, that is GE, that is why you should never invest in GE. You should never have your money in a mutual fund that GE is in. They do not bring good things to life. Said that the robot stopped moving on Friday during its first inspection of the containment vessel inside reactor number 1. One of the 3 reactors that suffered meltdown after the plant was struck by an earthquake and a tsunami, of course, in March of 11. TEPCO, which recently conceded that the technology for robots to retrieve the nuclear fuel had yet to be developed, said on Monday that it would cut the cables to the stranded robot and postpone a similar inspection using a separate device. Developed by Hitachi GE Nuclear Energy and the International Research Institute for Nuclear Decommissioning, it goes on, the robot was supposed to be able to function for 10 hours, even when exposed to radiation levels that would cause ordinary electronic devices to malfunction. Why are you watching The Correct Views? Because I'm able to look at things in ways that a lot of people aren't, such as this. What is not said in that sentence? In this article, they knew how much radiation the robots could handle when they sent it in and it died. I don't believe that they were wrong about how much radiation the robot could handle. I don't think people spend this kind of money on a worm-like robot just to find out that they're wrong. No, they were right. What they were wrong about is the astronomical radiation levels that were found inside of this reactor. That is the hidden story here. I think the radiation levels were much higher than they expected, and it shows the picture that's used as a thumbnail. 10-3 sieverts an hour? Look up what a sievert is. That's a lot, friends. It says the transformer robot, which can alter its shape depending on its surroundings, was sent in to photograph the inside of the reactor containment vessel and record temperatures and radiation leaks. It had covered 14 of 18 locations, while the first 7 were relatively close to each other, from what I understand, so that's no great feat there. It says it stalled about 3 hours after it began its journey around the vessel, officials said, adding that they had yet to establish the cause of the problem. We cannot even get a robot to film the reactor, and yet we're supposed to believe that they are going to develop technology which doesn't even exist to move nuclear fuel out when we can't even create a robot that can get close enough to let us know where the nuclear fuel is. Sure, that's going to happen. It says more than 4 years after the Fuku Daiichi suffered the worst nuclear accident since Chernobyl, a quarter of a century later, radiation levels inside the 3 reactors are still far too high for humans to enter. And this is a much worse disaster, by the way, not the least of which the reasons being where it's located. The ground on Japan is much different than the more solid ground that was in the Ukraine at the time of Chernobyl. It says TEPCO is pinning its hopes on a new generation of remote-controlled robots, the first of which will monitor the state and location of the melted fuel before others remove it from reactors' outer containers, which we don't know how to do. Last year, the dangers posed by high radiation forced TEPCO, which is GE, where you should never invest, and the government to delay the planned start of fuel removal from Reactor 1 by 5 years to 2025. Decommissioning Fuku is expected to take at least 40 years and cost tens of billions of dollars. It started out as 30 years. How many of you remember that? It could be wiping out millions, if not billions, of people with heart disease and cancer and various other ailments if this goes on for 40 years. Don't question me. I was right last week. Look it up. Dale Klein, I wonder how many people take that seriously. Dale Klein, a former chairman of the U.S. Nuclear Regulatory Commission, who now advises TEPCO, said dangerously high radiation inside the 3 damaged reactors had made extracting the melted cores particularly difficult. Radiation levels, he says, in these structures is higher, and working inside of them is problematic. This is a challenge that has never been faced before in the world, and there will have to be new equipment to develop to make that happen. We have no idea how to get corium out of a reactor. The corium is still in Chernobyl. They just built a great big sarcophagus around it, which, again, the layout of Japan does not make that a very good idea, not the least of which is I'm pretty sure that the Ukraine's Chernobyl structure could not take a tidal wave. I'm also pretty sure that the land location of it ensures that it probably won't. Japan will see a tidal wave, so you can't solve the problem the same way. It says there's an inherent advantage to the technology that exists here in Japan to develop these new skills and techniques, given its expertise in robot technology, Klein added. Expertise? Your robot just melted down. It didn't work. What expertise? They say these things and people just believe it because the bonehead said it. It says that those tools and equipment do not exist today, but the fundamental knowledge of robotic, remotely controlled devices will, I think, be sufficient. You thought it would be sufficient this time, and guess what? It wasn't, you freaking moron. This is from the 10th Amendment Center.com. Former EPA administrator is clueless about the Constitution and the law. This was important to cover, and I just couldn't let myself get rid of it. It says, when it comes to basic constitutional and legal principles, there are very few in the establishment that have even the slightest clue about the relationship between state and federal power. Former New Jersey governor and EPA administrator Christine Todd Whitman fits the bill, and there's a link, article by Jonathan H. Adler in the Washington Post takes her to task. It says that the critique concerns statements Whitman made in an op-ed in Politico concerning Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell's suggestion in an op-ed of his own that states should not cooperate with the EPA on their plan to control greenhouse gas emissions coming from power plants, nor should they implement it themselves. According to Whitman, McConnell's suggestion, quote, undermines our government as a whole, as well as our deeply held conviction that the rule of law is the foundation of any stable society. Well, that's true if the law is just. If not, then it's not true. It says this is total bunk. Adler correctly notes, stating that the Supreme Court has repeatedly and consistently ruled that states are not bound to enforce federal laws and that the EPA is no exception to this. In other words, states do not have to obey the federal law. That is why we are called the United States of America, not the United States of Federalism. Think, people. Think. It doesn't take a genius to figure this out. It says Adler, who teaches courses in constitutional, administrative, and environmental law at the Case Western University School of Law, ultimately calls her claim ludicrous, but that is putting it very kindly. It says, furthermore, as former administrator of the EPA, Whitman has no excuse to be ignorant about this. The EPA has attempted to coerce state governments into doing that numerous times and have failed in court. Anti-commandeering. We'll go on just a little bit more. Don't zone out because this matters. This matters unless you want to be taxed to death for global warming, which isn't happening. Look up ClimateGate. The issue at hand is the legal doctrine of anti-commandeering based on James Madison's advice in Federalist number 46 to refuse to cooperate with officers of the Union as an effective check on federal power. The Supreme Court has repeatedly held that the federal government cannot require states to help enforce federal acts. And it goes on to list Prigg versus Pennsylvania, New York versus the United States, and Prince versus the United States to prove its point. Look the article up, friends. It matters. Just because something is a federal law does not mean that states need to capitulate to it. And that matters to you if you pay taxes. So watch this and share it with friends. This is from the MiamiHerald.com. In Florida, officials ban the term climate change. What is with this banning of terms? It's going to come up repeatedly in this show, so leave a comment if you catch it. It says the state of Florida, which is where Christelle is from, is the region most susceptible to the effects of global warming in this country, according to scientists. Sea level rise alone threatens 30% of the state's beaches over the next 85 years. Now, let's remember the first 15 years into this, the people that predicted this 85 years have been wrong. So they better hurry this up. Otherwise, we already know you can add 15 to that. It says, would you know that by talking to officials at the Florida Department of Environmental Protection, the state agency on the front lines of studying and planning of these changes, DEP officials, it goes on, have been ordered not to use the term climate change or global warming in any official communications, emails, or reports, according to the former DEP employees, consultants, volunteers, and records obtained by the Florida Center for Investigative Reporting. The policy goes out beyond semantics and has affected reports, educational efforts, and public policy, in a department with about 3,200 employees and a $1.4 billion budget. In other words, if you look those words up, you can prove right away that the science isn't for it. So just don't say the word. It says, we were told not to use the terms climate change or global warming or sustainability, said Christopher Bird, an attorney at the DEP's Office of General Counsel in Tallahassee from 08 to 13. That message was communicated to me and my colleagues by our superiors in the Office of General Counsel. Excuse me. Christina Trotta, another former DEP employee who worked in Miami, said that her supervisor told her not to use the terms climate change or global warming in a 2014 staff meeting. We were told that we were not allowed to discuss anything that was not true or fact. Thank God. Good. You want to know why? Because wisely they are pointing out that man is not warming the planet. Climate change done by, for those of you that believe as I do, God. For those of you that don't, the chance of the universe, the Darwin fish, I don't know, the mighty moon men on the green cheese moon that we have, whatever you worship. It is there. Do you know that, for instance, historically, California, sorry, D-Lake, sorry, Anthony Court, they know this is true, has been a very dry place, a very bad place to live, a very bad place to grow food. In the recent history, according to the, how would you word this? In the last 200 years, 300 years, which is nothing in the life of the planet is what I'm getting at here. Recently, California has been a very great place to grow food, and it feeds a great percentage of the world's population. And I understand this. But historically, that has not been the case. And man had nothing to do with it 500 years ago, and man is having nothing to do with it now. Now, for those of you Green Party members, some of which I have at least some respect for, and I listen to what they say, such as some things that Helen Caldicott says, some things that Jello Biafra says. For those of you that are green-minded and Green Party-centered, if you want to talk about the pollutants in the air giving us lung cancer, I'll listen to you all day long. But please do not try to tell me that we are warming the planet, because we're not. It goes on here in the Miami Herald article. This unwritten policy went into effect after Governor Rick Scott took office in 2011 and appointed Herschel Vineyard Jr. as the DEP's director, according to former DEP employees. Governor Scott, who won the second term in November, has repeatedly said that he is not convinced, thank God, that climate change is caused by human activity, despite scientific evidence to the contrary. There is no scientific evidence to the contrary. This article is wrong, and Governor Scott is very much right. It says Vineyard has since resigned, and neither he nor his successor, Scott Steverson, would comment on the article. Friends, man simply is not warming the planet. And remember that Governor Scott here is on the right side of history. Listen to this video. There's a video link to this, I should say. This is Steve Watson, InfoWars. UN climate change officials say we should make every effort to depopulate the planet. Oh, but Sam, we should. You see, there's too many people in the world, and if we don't kill some of these people, then there's going to be too many people in the world. Not true. How do I know this? Because do you realize it is mathematical fact? And after I say it, pause the video. Don't shut it off. Pause the video and look this up. If every man, woman, and child in the world were afforded as much living space as the average person in New York City, you could fit every man, woman, and child into the state of Texas. Am I a genius? No. Look up Bilderberg, Why It Mattered to Me, and you'll find that I was taught that by a gentleman that I filmed in the movie. Maybe I am a genius because I had enough sense to film him. Anyone? No, nobody at all. Okay, officials within the UN are pushing the notion that the human population should be reduced in order to effectively combat climate change. That means the best thing we can do is kill you, kill your mom, kill your grandmother. Do you like that? If you're talking about depopulating the planet, that's what it is, okay? They're not just depopulating people that you don't happen to care about. They mean depopulating you, moron. It says the long-standing notion has been continually pushed here at 4:20 in the morning by Christina Figueres, Figueres. No, Figueres, excuse me. The Executive Secretary of the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change. In 2013, this bonehead had a conversation with Climate One founder Greg Dalton regarding the fertility rates in population as a contributing factor to climate change. Keep in mind, we have substantial proof that man isn't warming the planet. You don't like climategate.com? You don't, I think it might be .org. Fine. Lord Monckton. Look up Lord Monckton. It says a related issue is fertility rates and depopulation, Dalton opened. A lot of people in energy and environmental circles don't want to go near that because it's politically charged. It's not their issue, he added. But isn't it true that stopping the rise of the population would be one of the biggest levers in driving the rise of greenhouse gases, Dalton asked. Obviously, less people would exert less pressure on the natural resources, Figueres answered. Also noting that estimates suggest that the Earth population will rise by 9 billion in 2050. Do I believe that? Yeah. But listen, 9 billion, we have 7 billion now roughly. For those of you that think another 2 billion is going to be a big deal, listen, this is why I do this show. There's another side to this. Dalton then questioned whether that figure could be in some way stalled or halted. It says 9 billion is a foregone conclusion. That's like baked in, done. There's no way to change it, he asked. There is pressure in the system to go forward that we can definitely change those, right? We can definitely change those numbers, Figueres said in response. Really, we should make every effort to change those numbers because we are already exceeding the planet's carrying capacity, she also claimed. Let me ask you something. Do we have bad numbers of people, or do we simply have very bad politics, very bad ways of getting food to poor people, and as Sam Kinison said, perhaps very, very bad placement of people? Granted, he was a comedian, but he was right. Sometimes, if you're born in a section of the world that has no food in it, my history of my people are in this spot. If you stay in that spot, you're going to starve to death. Maybe you should move where the food is. I mean, there's been other people, of course, that have said it, but he's the one who said it most concisely. It says, really, yes, we should do everything possible. We cannot fall into the very simplistic opinion of saying just by curtailing the population, we solve the problem. It is not either or and also, the UN official also said. Climate One is a self-described public affairs forum which advocates extreme action to combat climate change. It is a branch of the Commonwealth Club of California based in San Francisco, to quote Michael Savage, essentially a talking shop visited regularly by heads of government and corporate businesses. Figueres is no stranger to controversial statements when it comes to climate change. The UN official previously described, as a link for it, the goal of the UNFCCC is to a complete transformation of the economic structure of the world. She has also repeatedly said that the Chinese communist dictatorship is better suited for the US constitutional system to fight global warming. What does that mean? Why are you listening to this show? I'll tell you what it means. It means it's better to be part of the Chinese system that will physically come to your home, take you to a hospital, and force abortions on you than is the system of child freedom which we have in America. That is what this bonehead just said. There's another link that reportedly it was said to Bloomberg News last year that the Chinese government, which continues to enforce forced abortions, infanticide, and compulsory sterilization, is doing it right when it comes to climate change, even though China is by far the biggest emitter of greenhouse gases. In other words, they're killing babies by the millions, and no one cares because they still put out more greenhouse gases than even the U.S. I'm going to mention that this is why I like InfoWars. It says InfoWars has continually noted that there is a fundamental flaw in associating climate change with overpopulation. Why? Think about it. Well, there's all these people starving in Africa, and it's them because there's too many people living there. You just said it, Sam. I said they're living in the wrong spot. No, Sam. No, you just said it. You just said it. If they're starving in the desert, then they probably are not running power plants. They don't own a lot of cows, which you look it up, they say cows fart and it warms the planet. They're probably not doing that, are they? Most likely not, because they're starving to death. How do 1 billion people or 3 billion people who are starving to death contribute to global warming? They don't. You can immediately factor them out. Or to put it more politely, and again, I'm not in favor of it. I'm just saying, quit blaming the poor starving people for being alive. They're not contributing to anything other than their own death because their countries are too stupid to relocate them. Populations, it says, in developed countries are declining. That would be America, Canada, Australia, etc. And only in third world countries are they expanding dramatically. And we just explained in great detail why they're not hurting anybody other than themselves, unfortunately. Industrialization itself levels out population trends, and even despite this, world population models routinely show that the Earth population will level out at 9 billion in the year 2050 and slowly decline after that. In other words, 9 billion is as bad as it's going to get. And when a country becomes more developed, they tend to have less children. That is, it's fact. To look it up. I'm not even going to go on. It's not my number. It's simply true. It says the population of the most developed countries will remain virtually unchanged at 1.2 billion until 2050, states a United Nations report. So even the UN knows this. So let me ask you, why is the UN trying to kill so many of us when they know it levels out at 2050? Why? Doesn't that seem a bit strange to you when they admit in their own report that this isn't going to be a problem in just 2050? Do you realize that the Italians are dying out faster than they're repopulating? Look that up. It says the UN's report on depopulation policies is in direct contradiction to their own findings. Once a country industrializes, there is an average of 1.6 child rate per household. So the Western world population is actually in decline. That trend has also been witnessed in areas of Asia like Japan and South Korea. The UN has stated the population will peak at 9 billion and then begin declining. Well, the UN's never right about much of anything. So let's say it levels out at 10 billion. Because, you know, if they tell you something's going to cost 9 billion, it's really going to cost you 10 billion. So let's say they're wrong about this too. It's going to decline in 2050. This is only going to be a problem, if it's a problem at all, until 2050. I'll turn 30 in 2050. Okay, I'm lying. In addition, how many of you, oh, that doesn't make any, you get a pen out. Then that's going to be the comment I get hate mail on. In addition, as highlighted by The Economist, global fertility rates are falling. Since radical environmentalists are pushing to deindustrialize the world in the face of the so-called carbon threat, this will reverse the trend that naturally lowers the amount of children that people actually have. If climate change fanatics are allowed to implement their policies, global population will continue to increase and overpopulation may become a real problem. Another example of how the global warming hysterics are actually harming the long-term environment of Earth. In other words, this is only a problem created by the global warming crowd to a very large degree. Population rates in the Western world are not even repopulating themselves. Friends, you're listening to The Correct Views. This show is brought to you in part by StickerJunkie.com. Rather than tell you how cool Sticker Junkie is, we'll do it this way. Do you think I'm the greatest artist that ever lived? No? All right, good. Then I'm talking to you. I created this logo in Photoshop. David Lake at Sticker Junkie turned it into this. And this. And my favorite, this. Just gave him a logo. They did all that. You can buy those for $1. By the way, get a hold of me at thecorrectviews@hotmail.com. That's my band passing time. You can help us. Sticker Junkie made that happen. You have an idea. You get that idea on paper. You get it at StickerJunkie.com, and you'll be happy that you did. Next story, and we're going to go into here. This is the truth about the gender wage gap. This is brought to you by Change Transportation. Do me a favor. If you're within a 50-mile radius, Christelle would say a 100-mile radius of Canton, Ohio, and you're going to go somewhere, make sure you find out how much it's going to cost you. Then go to Change Taxi. You can change transportation. You can find them on Facebook, and he will price match it within reason. Andrew Syrios of Mises.org, the truth about the gender wage gap. How many of you have heard women make less than men for the same job? That's not true. How do you prove it on a small scale? Pick up your local paper. Does it say hiring printer? Gonna make $9 an hour if you are a man and $8 an hour if you are a woman? No. Have you ever seen that ad? No, because that ad doesn't exist. It's not happening. It's not true. Common sense will tell you that it's not true. Well, here's some more things telling you that it's not true. Some myths die hard. The myth of the gender wage gap is one of that's been particularly long legs. Right after winning an Academy Award, Patricia Arquette, she's a bonehead. I like her. I mean, she did a great job in the movie Ed Wood. It's one of my favorite movies ever, but she's a bonehead. Proclaimed it's our time to have wage equality once and for all and equal rights for women of the U.S. to thunderous applause. In her 11 Commandments of Progressivism, Elizabeth Warren, another bonehead, is so beside herself that she writes, I can't believe I have to say this in 2014. Well, she didn't. We believe in equal pay for equal work. President Obama established an equal pay task force, and one of her first acts was to pass the Lilly Ledbetter Fair Pay Act. It is all but taken for granted. Women make 77 cents on the dollar compared to what a man makes for the same work, which isn't true. I've been taught this since grade school. Indeed, it would seem to be that only people who would disagree with me are actual economists who study the issue. Great quote. As many have noted, the question quickly comes up when discussing wage discrepancies between two groups. If employers care so much about money, which progressives seem to be convinced of, why would they ever hire a man when they can hire a woman to do the same thing at a quarter of the cost? In other words, if this was true, if it was true that women made less than men, if you own Billy Bob's tire store, if women make less than men for the same job, then you would hire all women, wouldn't you? Men wouldn't have any jobs, would they? Shazam, Sparky, guess what? It's part of the awakening. Welcome to the correct views. It says jobs are not homogeneous. A second problem comes up just after briefly scratching the data. Why isn't this wage gap even remotely close to being consistent across industries? It's not just models who make 10 times as much as their male colleagues. Women models make more than men, but also a variety, albeit minority, of different fields. Forbes recently, it says, ran an article based on the Bureau of Labor Statistics titled 15 Jobs Where Women Earn More Than Men. These jobs include bakers by 104%, teacher assistants 105%. Why can't men teach as well as women? Men make 105 less. Nutritionalists 101%. What, you mean to tell me when I tell you to take vitamin C, it's not worth as much as when a woman tells you to take vitamin C? I don't get it. Whatever you do, take vitamin C. And occupational therapists, 102%. Do those hiring bakers just happen to be some of the few people in this country who aren't sexist, perhaps? What about location? The Huffington Post, that's a rag, ran a similar article based on a census data titled The 11 Cities Where Women Out-Earn Men by the Biggest Margin. They include Atlanta, 121%, New York, 117%, and San Diego, 115%. And as Warren Farrell notes, the 03 Census Bureau current population survey showed that, quote, when women and men work less than 40 hours a week, the women earn more than the men. I can tell you this is true. The singer of our band, Serenity, Christelle, will tell you, she, by the time she actually gets to work and is done with her makeup and this and that and that and this, I make what she makes in like, again, over half the time. She'll work 4 hours and make what I make in 7. So I get it. It does happen. I live it. I see it happen. And if Serenity was here, she would laugh at me and she'd say, haha, I'm rich. You're not. All right. She's not really rich. I'm kidding. As Warren Farrell notes, in 03, Census Bureau population survey showed it to be true that, well, 1,134% for between 25 to 34 hours per week. Also, men and women have different career goals. It's very likely that women will take a job that is less demanding. Like, you don't find a lot of women underwater drillers, which is incredibly dangerous, for instance. It says, once you dig a little deeper, it becomes abundantly clear that men and women do not treat work or life in the same way. By either culture, biology, or a mix of the two, men place a higher value on income. For example, a survey of a man and woman's reasons for obtaining an MBA found that men acquiring an MBA aspire to become president or CEO of a public or private company. Women MBAs, however, ranked management consulting, executive-level vice president positions, and nonprofit executive management high among their career goals. Men expect to hold the top leadership positions, and for women, they simply do not expect to do so. It says men go into technology and hard sciences more than women. Men tend to take on more stressful jobs that are not just 9 to 5. Men are more likely to work longer hours, and pay gap widens for every hour over 40 hours per week worked. Women are more likely to have gaps in their careers, primarily because of child rearing and child care. And there's a number of other reasons here. And let me say, before you say I'm hating on women, I'm somebody that cares more about art and fact than money. Many of you know that I ask for money on this show from you all the time. I'm going to ask for it now. The correct views at hotmail.com. Get a hold of me. I'll tell you where to send money. Why? Because I'm trying to make between $25,000 and $30,000 a year by doing this show and only this show. And if you don't ask for money, you don't get money. This notion that it's a gender gap is just another way to keep people fighting against everybody else. If you think that all women are the enemy, if you think that all men are the enemy, then there's just one more way to divide us. The point is that if a woman was sitting in this chair, guess what? She's going to ask for between $25,000 to $30,000 a year. If I actually did this as a job and hired Christelle, I'm going to need like $30,000 to $35,000 a year, because I'm going to have to pay her at least 10 grand to keep doing what she does. And if it became a 3-hour show, we'd be having different camera angles, sound effects, hours of work for her. And of course, that's where I'm trying to take the show. My point being, this idea that gender is behind someone asking for money or someone getting paid a certain amount simply isn't true. A job pays a certain amount, whether you are male or female. Now, if I was a knockout pretty girl, I'd probably make a lot more money than if I was a bodybuilder buff guy. Since I'm neither one, I guess I'm screwed. Friends, if you don't laugh, then tune into somebody else. If you can't joke around, then this is the wrong show for you. Friends, real quick, I got 3 more articles to get to. 4 ways this food crushes cancer and inflammation of your body. I'm delighted about this. Christelle is going to cry because I absolutely love asparagus. And this article says that not only does it help prevent cancer, but you can even buy canned asparagus. There's no GMO asparagus. All asparagus will do for you what this does. And this is the only health thing I'm doing. So if it bores you, skip ahead 5 minutes. Unless you're live, then you're stuck. 1, master antioxidant. Asparagus has one of the highest concentrations, and there's links all over this article. I'm not going to report on everyone. Of glutathione, one of the master antioxidants made in the body. As we begin to age, our ability to make this needs to be bolstered by dietary intake. It appears to have a broad range of functions that reduce cancer risk, including detoxifying foreign substances that are carcinogenic, that means cancer-causing for you Drake fans, protecting from free radical damage, and boosting immunity by increasing lymphocytes such as T and B cells and natural killer cells. I still say Drake's even lucky that Madonna gave him the time of day. I'm just saying. And I really like both of them. 2, inflammation inhibitor. Inflammation has long been associated with the development of all disease, including cancer. It is central to the development of changes in the cells that lead to tumor promotion and progression. This means that reducing inflammation is pivotal to avoiding cancer. How many of you have lost someone to cancer? It took my father out. That's why I will not quit reporting on what stops it. Asparagus. Christelle, quit giving me that look and eat your damn asparagus. Is rich in saponins, compounds that have hardcore anti-inflammatory actions on the body. 3, plant power. Asparagus is also an excellent source of polysaccharides, specialized plant carbohydrates that have actions against various cancers. As an example, polysaccharides in medical mushrooms have made them notorious cancer fighters. Now, why is that important? Because you don't want to eat mushrooms. You don't. Trust me, I used to eat them all the time. I love them. We've reported on Fukushima earlier. Guess what? You know what a carp does in the water? They suck up all the crap and all the toxins. And you have to be careful how you clean a carp or a catfish, because if you break the mud line, you're going to be eating crap. Mushrooms soak up radiation. Many mushrooms come from California. Eating mushrooms is very, very bad. You can get these same polysaccharides by eating asparagus, okay? That's excellent news. Fourth and last, asparagus for cancer, researching the cancer defeater. In other recent research, another link, scientists in India, what I'm saying, I am Indian, I'm thinking you should listen to what I'm saying. Scientists in India found evidence that asparagus leaf extract produced anti-proliferative and apoptic effects against renal cell carcinoma cells, that's cancer. To achieve an apoptic effect is to return a cancerous cell to enough normality that it can be made to die as scheduled. Remember that cancer is caused by cells in the body that both mutate and refuse to die. What's all that mean? It means eat your damn asparagus, Christelle, and everyone else. Two more stories to get to. The dumpty of the day is going to be after this, so don't zone out. I've been making the shows longer. It's been 46 minutes. Why? I made you a promise. The more you view, the more I will post. The more in-depth I will get, the more stories I will do. The more silliness. All of it, all the stuff that you tune in for. Somebody has been sharing this show, and I have so many hits on my channel in the last week that YouTube hasn't even been able to count them past 301. You're going to watch like that? You're going to share like that? Then I'm going to keep my promise like that. Friends, this is a BizPack review. Joe Saunders, Our Laws, Not Sharia. A hero, I might say, female mayor tells unhappy Muslims, respect them, obey them, and embrace them. Listen to this. I absolutely fell in love with this woman. Cheers erupted in the city council meeting room in Irving, Texas last week as the city passed an ordinance to make sure foreign laws would never replace American or Texas laws. And it says the city's Muslim activists weren't happy. Look up Sharia law. Not all Muslims. If you're not one of these Muslims, then I'm not insulting you. If you are one of these Muslims, I am insulting you. Some Muslim bonehead bastards want to bring Sharia law, look it up, into our country. Sharia, S-H-A-R-I-A for you Lady Gaga fans. If you want Sharia law in this country, guess what? You're an idiot. And I am in full support of this woman on this. That's because the 5-4 vote supported, who was the four boneheads that tried to stop it, supported a proposed state law that was inspired by the establishment of a Muslim tribunal in Irving that supporters say is meant only to help local Muslims use Islamic laws, like we give a rat's ass about Islamic laws, to settle domestic disputes. But critics say it's the first step to getting Sharia law implemented in Texas. Let me tell you what. If I start the religion of Sam, that'd be pretty scary. And if you disrespect David Lake stickers from Sticker Jerky, you get 50 lashes. That's between me and anybody stupid enough to join. But if you think that it's going to hold any weight, you are in the wrong country, and we don't really care if you're offended. How's that? It says that the elephant in the room is that it's anti-Sharia bill. One activist told the local CBS station, well, anything that is anti-Sharia, I am pro. Within reason, don't hurt or kill anybody. If you don't say that, you'll have one listener that does. Irving Mayor Beth Van Dween is an outspoken opponent of the Muslim tribunal and the possibility of Sharia law in the U.S. but stressed during Thursday's council meeting that the ordinance did not mention Sharia by name or any other religion. The point, she said, is that American and state civil laws reign supreme and no foreign law has standing. Respect thee, obey them, embrace them, she said. What a hero for keeping that BS out of here. And friends, that brings us to the dum-dee of the day. 49 minutes, Christelle. Have I kept my promise? If you tune in, then I will give you more in-depth news. Have I done so?
I'm pretty sure you have.
Very good. Judge bans Constitution in Ohio. Kurt Nemo, PrisonPlanet.com. The dum-dee of the day. A judge in Xenia, Xenia, Ohio, said there will be no mentioning of the Constitution. Siga Heil, Christelle. During the trial of a journalist who is charged with a misdemeanor after he was cited for protesting against an anti-panhandling ordinance. Christelle, when we were going to work today, did I not tell you to give money to a bum? And you told me, and I'm going to say bum because he's a bum. You told me not to do it, didn't you?
Yep.
You know what? This guy was very likely scamming us. I believe this, friends, and you don't have to believe this. Christelle believes it deep down. She won't interrupt me. We were, in fact, were we not, Christelle, told by God that those who ask, we should give. If he wastes the money, the sin is his. The sin is not ours.
Correct.
Christelle got bent. Real quick, hey, everybody's been watching. We can talk longer. Explain why you don't trust some panhandlers and quote-unquote bums.
One day I was at a local Family Dollar store, and this bum came up and said, hey, do you have any money so that I can get some gas? I've got kids at home. Gave me a very lengthy story. And so I gave him $5 because I had a very, very good night at work. And I said, here, man, this will get you anywhere where you absolutely need to go. And he said, oh, thank you, thank you, thank you. Well, I go back a couple weeks later, and the same bum with the same story comes up, and I said, man, I'm sorry, I gave you $5 last week. And pretty much from there, I'm hesitant on big amount.
And you know what? That happens to a lot of people. Our drummer, Nick, worked in a convenience store. He has horror stories about bums. I give to like all the bums because I assume if that happens, the sin is theirs. But I understand why people are against it. But listen, this goes one step further. Judge Catherine Barber laughed when the defendant, Virgil Vaduva, argued his protest on a public sidewalk outside a Xenia police station constitutes free speech. It says the exchange between Barber and Vaduva occurred after a prosecutor said that mention in the Constitution during the trial would confuse the jury. So we now live in a world where the jury is confused by the Constitution, the law of the land. That's wonderful news. That's just freaking great. Widespread ignorance of the Constitution. It says many Americans are surprisingly ignorant of the Constitution and the founding principles of the United States. And what's interesting about this is one of the people that we found in real life to know more about the Constitution than most people do, look up Becoming Paul Revere. Christelle, is it not true? We found a drunk, homeless man that knew more about the Constitution than almost, not all, almost everyone that we interviewed that was there. Like he knew what was going on as much as the senator, didn't he?
He's absolutely correct.
It says an informal ABC news poll conducted in 2011 and revealed that 70% of 1,000 people surveyed could not identify the supreme law of the land. It is the Constitution, by the way. 61% didn't know the length of a U.S. senator's term is 6 years. I would have missed that. For some reason, I would have said 8. I'm just being honest. If I have my credibility, I have nothing. I'm good. I'm not perfect. 63% couldn't name the number of Supreme Court justices on the bench, which is 9. And 86% didn't know that 435 members fill the U.S. House of Representatives. Did I know that? I know it's based on that the population of any given state, exact number? No. But my point being, those who ban mentioning the Constitution downplay those of us that actually know what they're talking about. Do I know every exact number? No, you know what? I actually don't. I have to look up a lot of what I report. And that's why it's called the correct views. It's not called the correct views because, she'll use this against me forever, because I said it. It's called the correct views because I wouldn't be sitting here reporting it if I didn't find out about it somehow. Earlier polls show ignorance of the Constitution is a long-standing problem. For example, in 1998, Lunt's research survey showed that 59% of 13 to 17-year-olds identified Mo-Larry currently, while only 41% could cite correctly the legislative and executive and judicial branches. That's terrifying. I knew that when I was like 9, not to brag, but since I slammed myself earlier, I should be allowed to brag now. I knew that at like 9. I'm dead serious. It says the National Constitution Center interviewed 1,000 adults and found that 24% cannot name a single right guaranteed by the First Amendment. If you don't know, at least freedom of speech is in the First Amendment. You are part of the problem. Might I ask, how in 7 hells did you find this show? Only because the host look like an idiot. Only 6% can cite freedoms. Of course. See, Christelle, anytime I deprecate myself, she's like a ball of laughter. Only, what the hell? Now hiring a behind-the-scenes queen. I just fired mine. Only 6%.
Not really, guys. He's joking.
She hopes. Only 6% can cite freedom of speech, press, assembly, and religion. 52% do not know that the Senate has 100 members, and only 1 in 6 believes the Constitution created a Christian nation. Yes, because they don't know how to spell Christian, I guess. I don't know. Friends, you're listening to The Correct Views. Sam I.B. Gangi, literally like an hour-long show. I promised you, if you tuned in, I would keep going. I don't know who's doing the view thing. You get me enough money to make it my job, I will make it my job. You can donate at thecorrectviews@hotmail.com. You guys don't know me. If you're not a regular viewer, you send me a check, I'll put the check up and tell you what I spent it on. I'm dead serious. It's not about making money. It's also not about starving to death. And that's what freaks me out when people like InfoWars, they ask for money because they want vitamin D or they're doing this because they don't want to be beholden to General Electric. Christelle, would you like to stop all Fukushima updates because we need to kiss General Electric's ass?
No.
No. So I need you listening to donate so that if I say something and it pisses you off, maybe you won't send me any more money. But I'm not beholden to everything you say. If I try to sell this show to big stream advertisers, I'm going to be beholden to them. So yeah, I'm asking for money. And I've decided to be a little more out there with it. I DJ in a strip club. You know what? I'm the best damn strip club DJ you've ever seen. But maybe I would be a little more well-placed doing this more often. You guys make it a reality. I will be there. It's 4:58 in the morning. I've been with you for an hour. You make this happen, I'll be with you 3 hours. Because let's face it, friends, I've always been real with you. Good night. God bless. Thank you for tuning in to The Correct Views. Go to themediaspeaks.com. Look up the work of Kyle, Court, D. Lake, and myself. Adios.